The west pediment of the Temple of Zeus at Olympia is one of the most important sculptural ensembles of the early classical period. The pediment depicts the mythological battle between the Lapiths and the Centaurs during the wedding feast of Pirithous. The Temple of Zeus at Olympia was constructed about 470 to 456 BC as the principal cult building in the sanctuary of Zeus, the site of the Olympic Games. Its sculptural decoration included two monumental pediments that presented mythological scenes relevant to Greek cultural identity. The west pediment is generally dated to approximately 460 BC, placing it firmly within the early classical or severe style phase of Greek sculpture. The sculptures were carved from marble and originally filled the triangular pedimental space above the western entrance of the temple. This resulted in a carefully graded composition in which standing figures occupy the center, while reclining or collapsing figures appear toward the edges. At the center of the pediment stands the god Apollo, who dominates the scene both visually and symbolically. Apollo is represented standing upright with his arm extended in a gesture of command. Unlike the surrounding figures, he appears calm and composed, embodying divine authority and rational order. Apollo's central position divides the composition into two symmetrical halves. On either side of him unfold scenes of violent struggle between the Lapiths and the Centaurs. The god's calm presence contrasts with the chaotic movements around him. Near the center of the pediment, the figures stand upright and engage in energetic combat. Moving outward, the poses gradually become lower and more compressed to accommodate the narrowing space. The Lapiths are a mythological Thessalian, people whose wedding feast was disrupted by the drunken Centaurs. In the pediment, they are represented as idealized Greek warriors who defend themselves and the women present at the celebration. One of the principal figures is Pirithous, the groom whose wedding celebration forms the narrative setting of the battle. Although precise identification of individual figures is debated, scholars generally interpret several central male figures as Lapith heroes attempting to restrain attacking Centaurs. The Lapith men are depicted with muscular bodies and controlled movements characteristic of early classical sculpture. Their gestures convey determination rather than uncontrolled rage. Through these figures, the sculptors visually represent the ideal of Greek self-discipline. Opposing the Lapiths are the Centaurs, hybrid creatures with the upper body of a man and the body of a horse. In Greek myth, they represent wildness, lack of self-control, and barbarism. Within the pediment, Centaurs are shown attacking Lapith women or grappling violently with the Lapith men. Their twisting torsos and rearing horse bodies create dynamic diagonals that intensify the dramatic tension of the scene. Unlike the Lapiths, the Centaurs appear aggressive, emphasizing their role as symbols of chaos. Several of the most dramatic figures show Centaurs attempting to abduct women from the wedding feast. These interactions provide the emotional core of the narrative and visually reinforce the moral contrast between civilized and uncivilized behavior. These women are positioned throughout the pediment, often forming the focal point of individual confrontations. Their gestures, raised arms, twisting bodies, and expressions of distress heighten the emotional drama. Through the inclusion of these female figures, the sculptural program emphasizes the violation of social order represented by the Centaur's actions. Toward the edges of the pediment, the figures become increasingly compressed due to the architectural constraints of the triangular frame. These peripheral figures often represent the culmination of individual combats. Some appear wounded or defeated, while others continue to struggle in the limited space. The Centauromachy depicted on the west pediment was a common theme in Greek art, but its placement on the Temple of Zeus at Olympia carried particular significance. The scene symbolized the triumph of order, law, and rationality over chaos and violence. The sculptures of the west pediment of the Temple of Zeus at Olympia represent a masterpiece of early classical sculpture. Through a carefully balanced composition centered on Apollo, the sculptors created a dramatic narrative of the battle between the Lapiths and the Centaurs at the wedding of Pirithous. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe so you won't miss new ones.